Right now, let's turn our attention back to the assisted dying bill. The future of that bill is now in jeopardy, we're told, as many MPs who'd supported it at the second reading in the House of Commons on the basis a lot of the safeguards that were there are now saying they're wavering on support. As in the committee stage, the MP, the Labour backbench MP, who has actually brought this case, Kim Leadbeater, has basically completely backtracked, gone back on everything she has said before in terms of having lots of safeguards, including, crucially, this was vital for me, we're having a High Court judge basically making the final decision over whether someone should be given the right to die. Let's talk to Tom Hunt about that now. He's a former Conservative MP. He's now head of media at the Right to Life and a campaigner against this bill. Very, very good morning to you, Tom.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. Now, you and I come at this from different points of view. I've always been a supporter of assisted dying, and I was certainly in favour of this. But my view, actually, early on was I thought the bill should go further. It shouldn't just be for people who are judged by doctors to believe to have only 6 months left to live, but people who are living with interminable pain and difficulty as a result of long-term injury or illness. I wanted to expand it, but it was always crucial to me that we had safeguards, because we have seen in many parts of the world, in America and elsewhere, where they have brought in assisted dying with supposedly strong safeguards, that actually it's been a very, very slippery slope. What do you make of the changes since this has gone to the committee stage and MPs have been discussing it, and these changes, particularly with the idea of a High Court judge having the final say, being thrown out?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm really angry about how this has been handled. I'm not angry that there's people who disagree with me on the principle. I mean, I think we're all coming at a place of wanting to do the best for vulnerable people,
yes,
wanting to end and minimise suffering. So we're all coming at it from that place. That obviously doesn't make me angry. What makes me angry, though, is the way Kim is handling this bill. She seems to be running it almost as a campaign to win, with all the associated trickery, stacking witness lists, stacking the membership to the committee, launching massive changes to the bill, 10 p.m. the evening before, line by line.
Yeah. And also massive changes which she had categorically denied only 2 weeks ago that she would do.
Yes, and of course at second reading we had, I think, over 60 MPs had actually cited that High Court safeguard as being crucial for their qualified support at second reading. So I think it's the committee sort of descended into farce. I think there's 35 clauses this bill committee needs to get through. They spent hours sitting yesterday and didn't even get through one clause.
Yeah, doesn't bode very well, does it?
It doesn't.
But there isn't, I've got to say, there isn't a time limit. We were talking to Duncan Smith about this a bit earlier. There isn't a time limit on this bill. They can keep discussing it. I mean, I think of all the sort of bills you need to get right, you need to get something that involves literally the choice between life and death right. I don't think we should be hurrying that. There was lots of criticism when it actually had a debate ahead of the second reading, and it was, what, 5 hours? You know, MPs have spent longer, frankly, just, paying tribute to someone, retiring than they have on this assisted dying bill. But here's the thing. I'm with you. I think that everybody is coming at this from a good place, and they actually want to help people who are in this incredibly difficult, vulnerable situation. And a lot of it is a lot of people that come from a religious point of view or a moral, philosophical perspective about life and value of life and the like. And people are entitled to hold those views. But it is absolutely crucial that this bill, I mean, it would come back to Parliament, it would then to Commons, it would go through the Lords as well. But the key thing about the safeguards, as you say, 60 MPs or so actually cited this as a crucial aspect. And we're told, well, this is the only country in the world that's looked at this. But the problem has been identified that there'd be so many cases. We don't have enough High Court judges. We don't have enough retired High Court judges. We don't have enough time to know anywhere to put all these cases. It would completely clog up the family courts for decades to come. But that's a practical issue that needs to be resolved rather than throwing out that safeguard, isn't it? Right? Because we have seen, and I say as someone who supports assisted dying in these certain circumstances, I am also equally concerned about this slippery slope, because we have seen in some American states and in many countries in Europe and elsewhere that actually, young women who've got anorexia have been allowed to assisted dying. People who are poor or you just haven't got end-of-life palliative care, or people who just, feel like, well, I'm living on my own, I've got nothing. They're being a doctor is suggesting to them that, assisted dying may be the solution. And that is morally repugnant.
Well, I mean, I've looked at every single place so this has been introduced, and I think there's been horror stories. I mean, there's been degrees of horror stories. We've obviously seen Canada, where it now accounts for 1 in 20 deaths.
Yeah.
And the number of people who are going for it in Canada, it's socioeconomic reasons seem to be driving it. Things like loneliness, feeling like a burden.
Yeah.
But interestingly, when it came to the Bill Committee, Kim Leadbeater invited 8 international witnesses. 8 international witnesses to give evidence to this committee. All 8 were on record for being in favour of the principle. Interestingly, there was no one there from Canada. There was no one there from the Netherlands. So Professor Theo Boer, who's been at the forefront of this for 2 decades in the Netherlands, wanted to give evidence, not invited. We had 6 people out of 8 from Australia and the States. Well, the Australian states have only just introduced it, so
they don't have a long experience. But also there were, I mean, as you said, the backing of the committee, and there are sort of, just sort of, conventions in the Commons in terms of the proportion of MPs who vote for a bill as opposed to a bill, and the selection of the committee that discusses it. But the guests and the guest witnesses and the people giving evidence, you would surely want to hear from people on both sides of the debate to make sure you got your bill right. She doesn't appear to want to do that. She's kind of, I've got to be honest, she's being rather dictatorial about this.
Well, that's what goes back to what I said at the start. That's what makes me angry, because we're all stakeholders in this debate. We all live in this country. We've all got loved ones who could be impacted by this. We could be impacted by it. We want it to be as safe as possible. I want to be.
My family, we actively support the principle.
But what is the justification for her having 6 out of 8 of international witnesses from Australia? There's no justification for it. There's no defence for it. What's the justification for? And there is an argument that this whole High Court thing was a ruse to get it through second reading. We also look at the membership to the Bill Committee, and the most vocal, engaged supporters seem to be on it. And most of the opponents. I mean, there's some very good opponents on the Bill Committee, I must say. They've done some great speeches the last 2 days. But there's a lot of the opponents of sort of the softer opponents who didn't speak about it at second reading. So I think that we can see this, but I think it's backfiring for Kim. I think people are seeing through this. I think they feel uncomfortable with the way she's handling it. For an issue of this magnitude, life and death, it should have been approached in a balanced and sober way.
And a respectful way. But also crucially, as you say, it's a matter of life and death. But also, if you've got strong arguments, you don't need to shut down the other side. You debate with them and you win your argument.
Well, surely, Kim's saying that Canada is, not what we want in the UK. But of course, Canada is a similar country with a similar parliamentary legal system that introduced it in 2016. Things have clearly gone awry in Canada. Surely we want to understand why that was.
So we could prevent it from happening. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Well, and again, the fact that she's lost my support, I mean, I'm not an MP, I don't get a say, but I'm someone who's so principally in favour of this, I think is quite telling. And I wonder how many MPs will say, you know what, not this time round, you haven't got it right. And I hope that is the case, that they do that. But my heart goes out to people who desperately want this law to come into force. But it's got to be done right if it is going to happen. Tom Hunt from Right to Life, a campaigner against this bill, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you'll come on the show again. Benedict Spencer, you start philosophically, principally against this bill. But I mean, again, Kim Leadbeater, she's not, I mean, I've got to be honest, she's acting like a little Hitler on this one. She really is. It's really really inappropriate for a backbench MP to do this.
It is, and the dishonesty around it and the intentions, and also the arrogance of assuming that this will all just be fine if only we would just listen to her because she knows better and here are her
experts. She's so well
experts.
qualified. And she speaks out on all the big moral issues, doesn't she? Like that Batley Grammar School teacher in a constituency.
Well,
she's always spoken out about that, hasn't she? Oh, silly me, she never mentioned it.
Quite. This thing that is being just sort of forced down, the process of making it become law. Honestly, it's not a priority in this country. It's a very difficult, complex moral question, but it's also a very difficult, complex, practical issue when you try to implement it. And you can take,
I think it is very much a priority for the people who want it and the families who want it.
I'm sorry, there are so many things that are priorities for so many people. It's a small number. Take the morality out of the question. What part of NHS or police or justice system processes at the moment makes anybody think we would get this right? We get so many basic things wrong. Why do we think, in our wisdom, that this would be any different?
Very fair point.